What's up, everyone? Welcome back to 3M VTA. I'm finally back. Took some time off. I was actually doing school at the time, and then just kind of got a late start getting back to it. But I'm back. This is my next video, and this is the Gatewatch from Magic the Gathering and my favorite versions, aka my favorite cards of those characters. So please like and subscribe. I hope you all enjoy the video. So let's go ahead and start, shall we? So, who are the Gatewatch exactly? Well, they're a group of planeswalkers, I believe, consisting of about 5 or 6 of them together, that came together as a team. Basically, they're like the super friends of the Magic the Gathering series. They formed a team to help combat more powerful threats. And the original 4 members formed the team after they fought Obnixilis on Zendikar. So, whenever it's a team like I said, like Super Friends, or I guess more appropriately the Justice League would be more appropriate, or the Avengers, when they encounter a foe that's just too powerful for any of them to defeat one-on-one, they so that's what it's there for. So, but like I said, let's go ahead and get into this with my favorite versions of each member of the Gatewatch and a little bit about each one, and yeah, so. All right, up first we have Gideon Jura. He is the soldier of the group, basically. His oath was for justice and peace. I will keep watch. His original name was Kytheon Laura. He's from Theros. Unfortunately, he is currently deceased in the lore. He died saving Liliana from Nicol Bolas during the War of the Spark Battle. Basically, what it amounted to is and I'll get more into what Liliana did later when we get to her. But when Nicol Bolas invoked the contract, it was going to kill Liliana. Well, Gideon gave up his invulnerability to Liliana to save her, and ended up dying in the process. And yeah, so we guess we'll have to see if he comes back. For example, they killed off Elspeth, and she's back. So, and my favorite version of him I picked was probably the most famous version, Gideon of the Trials. He's a 3 loyalty planeswalker, +1, prevent all damage target permanent would deal until your next turn. His +0 is he becomes a 4/4 soldier with indestructible, but he's still a planeswalker and prevent all damage to him this turn. And his other +0 is you get an emblem that as long as you control a Gideon planeswalker, you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. It was only printed in Amonkhet, and it is currently legal in all Eternal formats. So pretty cool card. I do play with it a lot whenever I have a deck that needs a good white planeswalker. He's hard to keep up on the board because he starts out so low, but it's still a good slot filler. So, and let's move on. So next we have Jace Beleren. He is the blue planeswalker. Solid blue. He's always been blue. He's never been a different color, at least not yet. So we'll see what happens. He is from Vryn. The oath he took was, for the sake of the multiverse, I will keep watch. Master of mental magic. He's incredibly intelligent. When they formed the Gatewatch, also he became the de facto leader of the team, and him and Liliana actually used to be lovers. They used to be together, which is something, once again, just with Liliana, I'll get into when we get more into that when we get to her. There's 2 stories of how his planeswalker spark ignited. The first one is he got out of control with his powers and accidentally destroyed the mind of his mentor, Alhammarret, which is, I believe Alhammarret was a Sphinx. And actually, to this day, I don't think there's an Alhammarret creature card. It would be nice if they printed one. That'd be pretty cool. There's an Alhammarret's archive card, but anyway. And then when they redid it, they rebooted his Spark story to where it turned out his mentor Alhammarret was actually a bad guy and who was just using Jace because he knew how powerful Jace was. And after he fought his mentor, his memories became badly damaged and caused him great mental and physical pain and distress, which ignited his spark. My favorite version of him currently is the Wielder of Mysteries. The reason that it's my favorite version is because not only does it have two cool abilities, target player mills 2 cards and you draw a card, and then -8 you get to draw 7 cards. But the other reason is because this can be a win condition on its own. That if you mill yourself out by accident or on purpose, and then you draw a card, you win the game, just like with Laboratory Maniac. So it's basically like literally Laboratory Maniac mixed with a Planeswalker, so that's pretty cool. This was only printed in War of the Spark so far, and it's legal in all Eternal formats. So next up, we have Chandra Nalar from Kaladesh. Her oath is, if it means people can live in freedom, yeah, I'll keep watch. So she kind of joined reluctantly. She's an extremely gifted pyromancer, which I'm sure everybody knows. They've printed 1 million Chandra Planeswalker cards. Her spark ignited after she accidentally caused a fire and witnessed the death of her family, although it turned out her mother did survive. At the moment that she was going to be executed for that crime, her spark ignited. Supposedly she's pansexual, although that hasn't come up at all in the lore or the cards. But she does care deeply for her friends and takes their deaths extremely personal, apparently. So she has a very strong bond with the people that she cares about. Currently, my favorite version of her is the Awakened Inferno. I know most people would probably pick Torch Defiance, but I like this one because it can't be countered, so you don't end up spending 6 mana on it. Just to have someone counterspell it and you're out 6 mana, which is cool. But her +2 ability is each opponent gets an emblem with at the beginning of your upkeep. That emblem deals 2 damage to you. So you get an automatic, your opponents get an automatic emblem that drains them at least 1 each turn. So if you start stacking those, it can get pretty disgusting. -3, it deals 3 damage to each non-elemental creature, and then -X is it deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker. If a creature dies, it gets exiled. So that's pretty cool. Nice little removal. So you got a small board wipe, targeted removal, and opponent drain all in a planeswalker, which is pretty amazing. So far, only been printed in Core Set 2020, and she is legal in all formats. So let's go ahead and go to the next one. Nissa Ravane. Ravine. I think it's Ravane. She is from Zendikar. Her oath was, for the life of every plane, I will keep watch. She's very in tune to nature magic, and she has the special ability to communicate with the world soul of every plane and can manipulate the ley lines themselves, which is supposedly where all the magic comes from. And her spark ignited apparently at just the sight of the Eldrazi being trapped in Zendikar made her spark ignite. So it did, just seeing them did that much to her that it made her spark ignite, which everybody who's ever seen the Eldrazi knows they're pretty nasty creatures. So ironically enough, she was originally an extreme racist and prejudiced character. She believed elves to be superior to all other races, which is something I'm glad they didn't leave in her, because that's pretty awful, actually. She hates vampires and she's afraid of snakes, but she loves flowers, apparently. So that's pretty interesting. So far, my favorite version of her is the Voice of Zendikar. Let's see. Her +1 is you create a 0/1 plant token. -2 is you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, so you can buff your team there. And then her -7 is you gain X life and draw X cards, where X is the number of lands you control. So that's pretty huge if you ever get to that, which is hard, if not impossible, depending on which kind of play group you got. It's a pretty amazing payoff. And she has been printed twice, once in Oath of the Gatewatch and once in the dual deck Nissa versus Obnixilis. And she's legal in all Eternal formats. So, pretty nice card. I don't play with a lot of green, just because green is more geared towards creature-based decks, and I'm not a huge fan of just creature-based decks. Playing myself, I think it's kind of boring to play it. But I do have a couple decks that have green in them. And I've had her in a few decks, and she always works out pretty nice. So, all right. So let's get to the next one. We have Liliana Vess, officially my favorite Planeswalker. For all those listening, I actually currently am working on a tattoo. It's an anime version tattoo of Liliana Vess. I have one more session to go before it's all finished. I may try to post that up on my channel at some point, just so everybody in the community can see it for what it is. It's a pretty amazing tattoo. I can't wait to get it finished. But Liliana Vess, she is from Dominaria, and her oath was, "I'll keep watch. You happy now?" So, she was a very reluctant person to join. She's actually very selfish and egocentric. She typically only does things that benefit her. And her spark ignited after she was failed to cure her brother, which is Josu Vess, which they did make the card of. Um, she basically created zombies to come back to life to fight him and kill him, and then after she turned his victims into zombies to fight him, at that moment her spark ignited. So even though she looks like she's about 30, she's actually 2,000 years old. And like I said, she originally joined the Gatewatch just for selfish reasons, but she eventually did learn to care for them in the Gatewatch, especially Jace, who it's actually come up since then that she still has pretty hard feelings for. She still, I mean, for lack of a better word, she still loves Jace, which is why in Strixhaven, though she was so disappointed in herself for betraying her friends, betraying Jace, that she withdrew from the Gatewatch and fled to a random plane. So she went to Strixhaven, and she changed her name. That's why the card is Professor Onyx. She changed her name so she could try to keep from being found and move on. But we'll have to see what happens. You can't keep her down very long. She's another Planeswalker they've printed a lot of. Her, Jace, and Chandra especially have a lot of versions of them. So, my favorite version of her, it was close. I almost picked Liliana the Last Hope. I know everybody loves Liliana the Veil, which I don't know why. Like, yeah, it's good, but it's not that good. But Liliana the Dreadhorde General, I think, is pretty amazing. Passive ability of whenever a creature dies you control, you draw a card. You automatically create zombie tokens with +1. +4 is each player sacks 2 creatures, so you can help diminish your opponent's board. Plus, you get to draw 2 cards for yourself if you have creatures on the board, or 1, whatever, how many you have. And then her Neg 9 ability is absolutely devastating. Each opponent chooses a permanent they control of each type and then sacks the rest. That includes lands, people. So say you control 1 of every permanent. That means you get to keep 1 land, 1 artifact, 1 enchantment, 1 planeswalker, 1 creature. And the rest are gone. And you have to sack all the rest. So it's pretty devastating. Was printed in War of the Spark, and so far it's still legal in all Eternal formats. So, all right, let's go ahead and get to our next one, shall we? Johnny Goldmane. Now, Johnny is one of those characters. I think he's got a very interesting history. He's from Naya. His oath was, "Until all have found their place, I will keep watch." He specifies in white magic, but more specifically purification of body and soul magic, spells that strengthen and heal his allies and invoke the inner spiritual essence of others. His spark ignited over the rage of his brother's execution, which is why they have that, I believe it's called a Johnny Vengeance or Vengeance or something like that. It's the only Johnny, it's the Johnny that's white and red. Basically, the rage gave him access to red magic temporarily, and then eventually he learned to control it. That's why they haven't printed any more reds, and that's why he's also he makes me think of, he's like the Master Roshi or the Yoda of the group. He's a very wise, very almost a philosophy type character where he's there not only as a great warrior, but he's also there because of his he thinks outside the box and and helps people as far as training, and he's just very wise on life and stuff in general. But yeah, he's also has a very strong sense of justice. He believes that the strong is not only that the strong should protect the weak, but he believes that the strong are obligated to protect the weak. Um, an interesting side note to his character is he was actually outcasted by his own people because he was an albino, um, which is kind of interesting, I think, for his character. I mean, and then my favorite version of him so far is the Strength of the Pride. Um, it's +1 as you gain one life for each creature and each creature you control plus each planeswalker you control. So decent amount of life gain there, depending on what you're playing. His -2 is you created a Johnny's Pridemate token, basically. Well, that is what it is. You create a token of a Johnny's Pridemate. And then he's got a +0 that if you have 15 more life than your starting life tile, you exile him, but then you exile each artifact and creature your opponent's control. So he's also got a board wipe on him, ready to go anytime that you meet that condition. So only printed once in Core Set 2020, and he is currently legal in all Eternal formats. Up next, Teferi Akosa. Which actually I didn't even know Teferi had a last name until I started doing the research for this video. Sorry, I had to drink some Diet Mountain Dew. My throat was dry. But yeah, Teferi Akosa, which is one of the more notorious planeswalkers. A lot of people hate Teferi because his cards are very powerful. But he is from Zalfir on Dominaria. His oath was, "For the lost and the forgotten, I will keep watch." He can manipulate the flow of time. Hence the planeswalker card Teferi Temporal Archmage. He got his initial spark after he conducted phasing experiments, but then, so what had happened is he phased out Dominaria to protect it from the Phyrexians, but it was phased out like way too long. It got screwed up, and then it took him like 400 years or something to fix what happened. And right here is where I said he gave it up after sealing the time rifts over Sheev and to restore everything back the way it was. But somehow, someway, his spark got trapped in like this little amulet that Jorah had. And Jorah literally just gave it back to him, and that's how he got his spark again. And that's where we get like Hero of That's, after that happened, that's when they started printing cards like Hero of Dominaria, the Time Raveler, that kind of thing. He did study at Tellurian Academy, and he has a daughter named Niambi, which there is a Niambi card, but she's awful, unfortunately. Like, actually, I think there's two Niambis. I think one is it's like one of those where when you play it, you get to search your library for a particular version of his card, and then the other one, I don't remember what it does. I think is you discard. I think it's you discard a legendary card, and you can. I don't remember. I just remember I didn't think it was that good. But anyway, my current favorite version of him is the Hero of Dominaria, which is probably one of the more powerful ones, if not the most powerful one. +1 ability, you get to draw a card, and then you get to untap 2 lands at your end step. -3 is you put target non-land permanent on it in its owner's library, third from the top, so pseudo removal. And then his -8 is you get an emblem that whenever you draw a card, you exile target permanent opponent controls, which includes lands. So if you can get that -8 off, which I have several times, it's just absolutely devastating. Most people just scoop when you start. I try to be fair, and I usually exile everything before I get to their lands, but once you start exiling their lands, they just give up, which I don't blame them. It was printed in Dominaria, and he's legal in all Eternal formats. And finally, we get to Kaeya. She is from Tolvada, and no, I couldn't figure out which plane that was on for some reason. Her oath was, "So everyone gets what they truly deserve, I will keep watch." She can make herself partially incorporeal, which is why you have several cards with pictures of her like going through things. So she has the ability to like pass through stuff. And believe it or not, I could not find the reason for her ignition of her spark. I couldn't find it anywhere. Couldn't figure out what her name was. They haven't released her family name. Her last name but she can't use it for some reason, for undisclosed reasons, is literally what I found it said. But she has several nicknames, including the Ghost Assassin, Kaeya the Far Traveler, Kaeya Slayer of the Blood Sky Sire, and Kaeya Orzhov Guildmaster. And she is the Orzhov Guildmaster. Sorry, that's what I meant. Currently, my favorite version of her is the Orzhov Usurper, although Kaeya Ghost Assassin was pretty close. But I like this one because of what all it can do. Is you +1, you exile up to 2 cards from a graveyard, and if one of them is a creature, you gain 2 life, so you got life gain plus exile in the graveyard. Neg 1 is you exile target non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less, which can get pretty situational, but there's a lot of things that are 1 or less mana that you would want to exile right from the battlefield. You know what I mean? And then her neg 5 is she deals damage equal to the number of cards a player owns in exile, and you gain that much life. And yes, I have won games with that ability. Over time, black and white over time, beating somebody down, draining them, whatever you want to do. And then at the end of the game, towards the end, you neg 5 her, and then next thing you know, they're losing 20 life and you're gaining 20 life, or they're losing 10 or 15 life and you're gaining 10, whatever. So she was printed in Ravnica Allegiance when they did the 2 different Ravnica sets in the last, I think it was 2 years ago, something like that, a year or 2 ago. It's been a little bit, not super long. And she's legal in all Eternal formats, and that's going to wrap up our video of the Gatewatch, folks. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. I plan on to start doing more videos again. And next time I'm going to do my top 10 PS2 games, which should be pretty interesting. Always been a fan of the PlayStation. Had the PS2 pretty much ever since it came out. I still have one that works right now. So ought to be nice. I can't wait to share my thoughts with you on that. And so I guess until then, I'll see you guys same nerd time, same nerd station, and everybody have a good evening.